If you spend any time on BookTube, it doesn't take long to notice that Romantasy, that blend of sweeping fantasy worlds and central romance plots, has become a bit of a lightning rod. It's wildly popular, constantly recommended, and just as constantly criticized. The controversy around it isn't really about dragons or love interests. It's about what we value in books, who gets to define good taste, and how online spaces reward strong opinions. On one level, the argument looks simple. Some booktubers feel that many romantasy books are overhyped and underdeveloped. They point to familiar tropes, repetitive character types, and fantasy settings that feel more like aesthetic backdrops than fully realized worlds. From this perspective, the genre can seem lazy or formulaic, especially when compared to more complex epic fantasy or literary fiction. But that's only half the story. Fans of Romantasy often push back hard against this framing, arguing that it misses the point entirely. These books aren't trying to be dense political epics or experimental literature. They're meant to be emotionally engaging, immersive, and fun. For many readers, especially those who felt excluded from serious fantasy spaces, Romantasy offers something powerful. Stories that center relationships, emotions, and desire without apology. Enjoyment, they argue, shouldn't need justification. This is where the conversation starts to get uncomfortable, because Romantasy is overwhelmingly written by women and read by women. Critics of the criticism point out that genres associated with female readership, romance, YA, romantasy, are often dismissed more quickly or more harshly. When a booktuber rolls their eyes at romantasy, it can feel less like a neutral critique and more like a familiar pattern of devaluing things that women enjoy. Even reviewers who mean well have begun to acknowledge that unconscious bias may shape how they talk about the genre. Then there's the role of hype. BookTube doesn't exist in a vacuum. It overlaps heavily with book talk and publisher marketing. A small number of romantasy titles get pushed everywhere at once, creating sky-high expectations. When those expectations aren't met, disappointment turns into backlash content, unpopular opinions, rant reviews, and dramatic thumbnails. The algorithm loves extremes, so measured takes often get drowned out by praise that borders on worship or criticism that borders on mockery. Another common frustration is how similar many of these books can feel. The same archetypes keep appearing, the same romantic beats repeat, and the fantasy element sometimes seems secondary to the relationship drama. Critiques see this as stagnation. Fans, on the other hand, see comfort. Tropes, they argue, are not flaws but promises, a shared language between author and reader. No one complains that mystery novels include detectives or that horror novels aim to scare. What really fuels the controversy, though, is the tension between honest criticism and community reaction. Some booktubers feel that disliking romantasy has become socially risky. Negative reviews can bring waves of backlash or accusations of being elitist. At the same time, fans feel frustrated when creators knowingly read a genre they dislike, only to tear it apart for content. Both sides feel unheard, and the conversation gets louder rather than clearer. In the end, romantasy isn't controversial because it exists. It's controversial because it explores old debates in a new form. What makes a book good? Who gets to decide? And why do certain kinds of stories still have to defend their worth more than others? The genre's success suggests that regardless of BookTube's arguments, romantasy is filling a real need for many readers. The controversy says less about dragons and love triangles, and more about how online literary spaces struggle to balance critique, taste, and respect in an era where popularity itself can feel like a provocation.